Welcome, everyone. This is Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden, and I will be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about the power of coaching. Now, I'm not going to be doing this alone. I'm going to be bringing on a business coach and life coach, Lyn Christian, who's going to be helping us understand just how powerful coaching can be. And let me tell you, I'm not trying to spoil this episode or anything, but this one is a good one. You are going to want to watch every bit of this. You're going to want to listen to every word, because what goes on in this episode is not so much of just a regular conversation talking about someone's life, their business. It's talking about your potential as a person. What can you accomplish in this world today? What are you supposed to be doing in your life? Sometimes we do need a wake-up call. Sometimes we need a reminder. Sometimes we need a little bit of direction. And today we're going to be offering an immense amount of direction. Whether you are a long-time listener, a new listener, you're a high school student thinking that the world is full of limits and that you have to make some choices today. Well, a good choice that you can make today is listening to this episode, because not only are you going to get a clear understanding of a direction or directive you have to start to implement into your life, but understanding the possibilities that are in front of you. Sometimes I think people, they think they only have one path in life. They have to go to school, go to college, get a career, work a 9 to 5, work to 65, and then that is life. But yet, even though we can work corporate America, we can climb the corporate ladder, we do have to do some due diligence in the sense of, is our happiness today going to be the happiness tomorrow? So we grow with time, we grow as we age, but our mindset is going to mature and is going to develop into a new type of thinking. What type of thinking are you currently thinking? Are you optimistic? Are you ready for the world? Are you going to be afraid to take action? Well, no matter where you are, you're going to learn something in this episode with Lyn Christian and myself. Welcome, Lyn Christian, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for the invitation.
No problem. Today, we're going to be talking about the work that you do, and you are a business and life coach. When we get into the conversation, I know we're going to be learning so much about all aspects of life and business, because the work that you do is amazing. You have over 25 years of coaching experience, TEDx talks, like you know what you're doing. And that is why I have you on, to share your expertise and your wisdom with the world. Without me talking about your whole biography, tell the world who you are, what you do, and how you help.
All right, I'll do that in a nutshell. So I am, as you said, a coach. I came about coaching via academics and then left academics and became sort of an entrepreneur within the business community. My three main titles while I was working in corporate America were in innovation groups. So innovation is my middle name. It was during the time that I jumped from academics to business that I discovered coaching. And I wanted to go into coaching not for the ability to coach. I wanted to go into coaching as a trained individual who had used coach training as a finishing school, because I feel like we grow up and there's so much education we can get, but jumping through hoops in colleges and universities may not necessarily prepare you for the kind of world we live in today. And I saw people in the coaching world that had emotional intelligence. They were self-aware enough to push themselves to grow in places that were challenging. They learned communication skills, and so they could assist and support other people to be at their best. I wanted to know what kind of people they were. And when I saw who they were and their character and competence, I was like, I want to be that kind of person. Well, it turns out I was pretty good at the skill of coaching as well as learning how to be a better person. And so I now have my own coaching business. I finished up being the director of innovation at Franklin Covey Coaching. That was my last corporate job. But really, in my heart of hearts, I'm an individual who is here to enliven and enlarge individuals' vision of who they are and what they can do with that capacity. So I use a blend of business coaching and neuroscience and life coaching to do what I do. Is that an okay introduction?
Well, your introduction can be whatever you want. You could talk about your childhood. You could talk about your business. It's all up to the guest. And that is where the magic of our podcast is, because it's a very pragmatic, open, flowing conversation where we don't know what we're going to get until it happens. And that is where the beauty of podcasting comes in, I think, and the beauty of business ownership comes in, because you don't necessarily know where you're going to be going. You might have an inkling of how you want to feel or where you want to be, but it's not until you start doing until you say, okay, let me make a pivot, let me make an adjustment. And that is what many people are doing. However, sometimes people are on a path that might not be the right path for them. They hit a wall and they say, oh, well, I'm going to stop here. They're stuck, whether it be business or life. Tell me about that. Do you experience that a lot with your clients, or have you experienced that in your life where you were going down a path and you just hit a wall and you were looking for answers?
Yes, I have. And let's put a pin in that. And I'm going to address something you just said because I'm going to be 100% in agreement with you. When you talked about we learn from doing, and sometimes we can have great plans and they change, right? So I want to address that because it's in the research. It's also in my experience with clients. It's probably in your experience, or you wouldn't have brought it up. We as adults learn the same way we do as children, which is through doing and experimentation. You know, if you watch a toddler, they put something in their mouth and they taste it and they figure out, yeah, or something in their mouth and they go, oh, that's square or that's a sphere. We are the same and we forget that. So we can have the best laid plans of mice and men, to quote Steinbeck, or we can literally have one foot in the planning camp and try to anticipate and plan as best we can. And then the other foot is usually better served when we innovate and we see what comes our way. So one step with a plan and one step with adjustment so that you can make those pivots is often the way to do your own personal rolling wave innovation into the future. So I wanted to say that because I think you brought up that topic almost nuanced, but I wanted to reiterate that because somebody's on your podcast audience is going to need to hear that. That's, maybe the two-step through life. One plan, one pivot. The other part is getting stuck. And what we find is a lot of us get stuck in different places. They could be in our personal life or they could be in our professional life. Sometimes what it looks like is your friends start to tell you that they feel like you've kind of got a lid on something, or you're not who you used to be, or you could feel that way in your own personal life. And you go, is this as good as it's going to get? Sometimes you're at work and you're just in a position where the environment, while it was good at one point, maybe it's become toxic, or maybe the work you're doing just no longer invigorates you. And you have this little voice that says, well, don't be a brat and just be bored about it. Just buck up and keep going because you're being a baby. But a part of us inside knows, no, this is not the right path for me. So life is full of pivots. And for me, my first time when I really had to challenge myself to reinvent my working identity, I was in a career I loved, a career as teacher that I had earned awards for, notoriety, happiness. But after 15 years, it was starting to dwindle. And I was like, what is up with this? Why has this changed? And it was changing because I needed to change. And so sometimes our stuckness is a way of telling us that there is a pivot or an opportunity that we're missing if we'll just raise our head above being stuck and ask ourselves what's really going on. So that is one of the pivotal places where I do get clients, because 30% of my clients come in for career or personal reinvention, and they come in because they're stuck.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot for many people to be in because we all have to go through that, but sometimes people are reluctant to want to change, to shed that shell that they're in. And it's a difficult path for many people because it's going to be full of uncertainty. We do have to know that, as you said earlier, we learn the same as children learn, right? Through our mistakes, through our failure, through trial and error. But as an adult, we want to make as little mistakes and have as much of the benefits as possible.
Yeah, I think you're right. And you're also right. There are two scary demons. They look scary. And you named one of them when we're trying to change something that can keep us stuck. One is that uncertainty of what's going to happen if we move. And the other one is the gosh darn inconvenience, right? And I recently published my book, SoulSalt, a field guide to confidence and purpose and fulfillment. And in there, I put a quote that Einstein was musing about one day. And he was like, a lot of us are, and I'm going to paraphrase, a lot of us are numb. We're stuck in places. We've forgotten who we really are because we've probably forgotten that we have choices, that we can still choose. And so that's another reason that we get stuck is we forget, well, this is not just how it is. And we forget that uncertainty and inconvenience are the demons we have to, the boogeyman that we have to face off with to get through that threshold of change. And that can be scary, but it's also not so daunting that it's not possible. We need a little more fortitude sometimes, and a little more vision of, well, what is on the other side? Just even an inkling that says, yeah, you can have the courage to step over because it's going to be okay.
And then how would someone create or build that confidence and that fortitude? Because if they have given themselves a habit of not pushing themselves, of always succumbing to fear, and then when they finally have an opportunity to show up, to be resilient, they don't necessarily take the responsibility, and they don't say, all right, I'm going to make some changes today. They just lay there in complacency, in fear, as we're
Uh-huh.
talking about.
Uh-huh.
How do we help someone begin to change their mindset?
So that is what my whole book is about, is getting that confidence so you can be on purpose. So I'll go through what some of the chapters are about,
Mm-hmm.
and then we could maybe do a tiny little sample. How's that?
Great.
And see what it does for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So some of the things that I'm interested in doing with my clients, and I put like a year's worth of life coaching into the book. So if you go through it, just give yourself time, do the exercises. It's worth a year's worth of life coaching for the price of a book. So one of the things is having a possibility practice. And what I mean by that is we all have heart dreams, we have aspirations, we have things that we would put in the someday bucket, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, having those as a practice of getting them out in front of you and then periodically selecting things that you go for will do nothing more than what the I Have a Dream Foundation does for its individuals, that it lifts up. It gives us confidence. It gives us inspiration. It gives us willingness to see another day. It gives us hope. It helps us feel on purpose. And we sometimes forget that those things that we daydream about are our possibilities. And it doesn't mean that all of them have to come true. But if we have a system, and I have a system in my book that I explain, where we systematically bullseye one or two of them and hit those out of the park, that lifts us up, and we see how big and bold and envisioned we can actually become. So that's one of the pieces. There are other things like unique personal needs that go way beyond Maslow's hierarchy. Everybody has unique personal needs, and some of them are starving and some of them are gasping for air. And we don't realize that some of the idiosyncrasies about ourselves, that if we pay attention to what those are and get the underlying need met, and I'll give an example of what I mean in just a moment, all of a sudden we have new breath, we have new life, because some part of us became more sustainable. Some part of us became more sane and stabilized because that need is met. So one in particular worked with a woman who was reinventing. And one of the things we found out she needed in her new job, whatever that career was going to be, is she needed to get up in the morning, get her coffee brewing, get the shower, get into her clean, fresh, wonderful outfit that she had picked the night before, take that coffee mug, get on the road, and drive and be with a team that she loved. That was the element. And she didn't want to claim that as a need. But once we recognized that it was a need, we could look at the opportunities that were coming to her to not work at home, to work away, to have that schedule. And when she found one or two that fit that category, and then from that group, she picked one, she had that need met. There was fulfillment. Sometimes these little nuances, we don't pay attention to ourselves. We try to twist ourselves into somebody else's expectations. And in fact, that's the number one regret of people who pass away, is that they regret that they didn't live true to themselves and they lived up to other people's expectations. And this is how small and maybe pedestrian it may sound, but when you start to understand these nuances of yourself, and then you get like needs met, aspirations met, it bolsters you from the inside out. You inspire yourself. You live your life and you earn your living by doing the things that inspire you to be your best self. So other chapters are things like, besides the needs, we do things like, how do you measure success? We talk about where you get your inspiration from. We talk about your values. We talk about your superpowers, your pseudo strengths, how to manage weaknesses and mitigate. So there's this whole collection of, when you go through the book, you find the salt of the soul. You find your recipe to success. So that's an overview of where the confidence can come from. Every person has it in them if they just know where to dig, look at it, and utilize it. And I can give you a quick example if you'd like one.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, so let's find out one of your unique needs. We talked about this client that needed to go to work and have that coffee mug by her side. I'll take you through a series of questions, and then let's see where you end up. So would you consider yourself a very moderately paced communicator who is very deliberate? You think things through, you ask questions before you make decisions. You may eat slower than most people. You may get a little overwhelmed at the soap aisle in the grocery store because you want to get the right value for the right price. Or are you more like somebody who is fast? You like to make your decisions fast. You eat faster. You have a lot of ideas. You're really driven by a challenge. Like, do you feel like you probably have traits in both camps, but is one stronger than the other? Good question.
It is like 50-50 because like I would lean to number 2.
Okay. How
but
come?
barely, because I do like to make choices, and I sometimes take my time and I say, okay, let me look at everything. Let's make sure this works. I eat fast, things like that. But if we look at number 1, I'm quite deliberate. I know what I want to do, and I'm not looking at prices of soap and stuff like that. I know what I want when I go into the grocery store.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. So that's probably why you do lean to the second one. Yeah, because you're a little more decisive. However, is there one part of you that likes to slow things down and gets aggravated if things go too fast? And another part of you that likes to go fast and gets aggravated when we have to do the analysis? Do you ever find that you have that tug of war going on?
No.
Okay. All right. So you've told me which camp you're in. So here are some potential unique personal needs for you. See if any of these fit. Okay. There may be a part of you that needs to have control over your environment so that you work where you want to work, when you want to work. And you might be thinking, well, I just like that, or I want that. Well, I would challenge you, you might actually need it to be at your best. So that's a potential. Another would be you need to be able to get results. Like, you can't just talk about stuff. You have to get things done. You have to put the bow on it. You need to get it finished. You need to check it off. Is there a part of you like that? Okay, so you may want to pay attention to the fact that you may have a core need of getting results. And maybe some of your formulas to slow down a little bit and make sure they're in the right direction or the right quality. But if you don't get results day in and day out, a part of you shrivels up like a raisin instead of being a plump, juicy grape. So there are just 2 examples. There may also be a part of you who's willing to take on challenges and risks. And so every once in a while, you may need to push yourself and stretch yourself to feel kind of vibrant. You see that? I can see it on your face. Yeah. So those are the kind of the nuances I'm talking about, that when we put those out on a table and then have you sort through them, and as your coach, I would ask, so which of these can you get met this week? And you start getting those needs met, you start to feel how fortified you feel. You know, it's like getting vitamins. It's like getting that water or that electrolyte just when you need it. So anyway, just mirroring those back to you, what was your experience of hearing these pieces of you that maybe you haven't paid as much attention to, but they've been alive in you? How did that feel?
It's almost like an understanding of what's possible, because sometimes you are just so busy in the world. And when you have someone remind you of it, it's almost like your blind spots. It's like you can't see your blind spots. That's why you have a coach. That's why you work with a mentor or someone who can say, hey, I see this in you. And then you're like, yeah, like, why did I not see that? It's because our world is just so busy and so chaotic sometimes, where we can look at those small nuances and they can be the big things that can make some great impact in your life.
Yeah, it's hard to read the label when you're inside the jar, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So there you go. There's your sample.
No, it was definitely inspiring, especially for many of the audience members, because they get to see what a coach does, right? Going through the process. And then even as you said, like, your book is a year of life coaching. I find that to be an immense value for anyone to take into their life, because what I have done with the podcast is basically coaching in session. We have wonderful coaches like you, Lyn, that come on, talk about the work that you do, and then just hit us with wisdom and knowledge and just goodness, because then they can understand just how powerful coaching can be. Even for myself, I've been teaching coaching for quite some time. I know the power of coaching. I have coaches myself. I have mentors myself. I know that I cannot do this by myself. It is a love that people do not realize until they immerse themselves into a coaching experience, finding the coach. And that is what I wanted to do with coaching in session. Coaching in session is literally bringing on a variety of coaches. I don't even know how many coaches I've interviewed at the time, 150 or something like
Wow.
that, or something like that.
Amazing.
I can guarantee you, if you listen to one of these coaches, you are probably going to find someone that resonates with you, like Lyn. You're going to find someone who just can see you. And that is what you want. You want someone who can see the potential within you. And then they say, I'm going to drag it out, whether you like it or not. That's so powerful.
It is powerful to have an advocate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we don't know who we really are until we see the things that we're capable of or the things that we do mirrored back by somebody who witnessed us. And that outside witness is sometimes the only validation where you go, oh, that old thing. And you go, your coach is going crazy over like, no, that's a superpower. And you put it on and use it. And it's like, oh, okay, that's what a superpower feels like. Exactly. Our job as coaches, I think, is one of the greatest gigs that you can possibly have.
When I think I was 28, 29 or something like that, I was like in and out of careers. I started my whole college career doing business finance accounting. Then I switched over to teaching, and I did that for a little bit. And I loved teaching. I didn't like accounting, business finance as much because after 2 years, I got burnt out. Now it's like, this is
Yeah.
miserable.
Yeah.
And so I love teaching. But then when I had the opportunity to go into business finance again, sales, I said, all right, I'm going to make some money. So I was all for the money. I was looking at the dollar figure, but my heart and my passion was still into education and teaching. And when I had got a mentor when I moved to Austin, Texas, he was talking to me. I was doing sales at the time, and I was just talking about the work that I was doing. And then he asked about my past. I told him about teaching. And he said, when you talk about your business finance stuff, yeah, you're knowledgeable in it. You like it seems like. But when you talk about your teaching, your education, you light up. And
Mm.
it wasn't something that I recognized until he put it in front of me. Yes, I knew I loved it. Yes, I knew I was good at it. But it wasn't until he said, that is what lights you up. That is what you should be doing with your life. And that is where I began the whole journey of starting my business and being a coach. Because I said, yes, teaching is great, but there is a need for coaches. Because if we look at our system, our school system especially, many parents have learned, especially through the pandemic, that there are many holes in the public school system.
Right.
So many parents are actually taking out their kids from the system and doing the education process themselves. However, parents are not equipped to be teachers unless you have went through the process to be a teacher and you understand all aspects of child development, learning, growth, stuff like that. You're better off hiring a teacher to come teach your kids. But if you did decide to go like to a private school or a school that's going to be maybe better suited to what type of child you're trying to bring up, Catholic, Montessori, etc., right? So there's many
Right.
different avenues that a parent can go down.
Right.
Even then, the child is still going to have holes, and that is where the wonders of coaching comes in, because the coach is going to say, all right, you have a wonderful path that you have been walking on, that you have been building, but let's see if there are going to be any holes in your learning or in your life. And let's fill in those holes. And I find that to be one of the best things a coach can do, not only filling in the holes, but then to understand now that we have a smooth path, let's figure out the destination.
Love it. I'm just not in my head. Yep. I think it goes back to that Einstein quote as we have choices.
Yeah.
And sometimes we forget that we have choices.
Mm-hmm.
And that inconvenience and uncertainty keep us at the door instead of making that choice sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And then I want to get into a quick conversation with you on the power of having people make a decision that might be the best thing that they want to do in their life, but they're hesitant. For example, coaching is an investment. I understand coaching is an investment. I understand that you could be tapped out right now. There's a lot of uncertainty in our world. And I'm not saying that that uncertainty is not there and that you should not be paying attention to it. But if there's an opportunity for someone to elevate themselves, that they're going to get a better return on investment, why not take it? But many people will not get coaching. They will not get help. It's similar to people do not go to the doctors until something is hurting in their body. They wait until that trauma comes into their life until they say, you know what, I think I need someone in my life to help me. Why do people do that? And then how can we get people to start taking action sooner, investing in themselves rather than just waiting until everything falls apart?
That you asked some huge questions.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take off a sliver of that and see if we can address part of it.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience, a lot of times the reasons that we don't jump in are what you said. The pain is not great enough. And so it's not until it's intense, until we can't, slide it off our back or ignore it or go numb about it. It's just screaming in our face. And that's unfortunate because by then, a lot of times we also need healing besides the coaching. Because you and I know as coaches, our job isn't to heal, it's not to fix, it's not to help, it's to support those who are doing well to do extraordinary things with that wellness. And so the thing that I would look at, and this is something like you, I always have a coach and I am always doing certain endeavors. For instance, I'm 64. When I was 58, I started playing with the idea of becoming a fencer competitively. Before that, I was a triathlete and I started doing that in my 50s. And it was inspired by a client. By the way, I didn't ever go into a gym until I was 50 and he invited me into this elite gym of his. And then I was like, wow, this is changing my life. So here I am, 58, going into fencing. And I've had a lot of fencing is a really imbalanced sport. And I've been in the national tournaments. I had a goal to get on a national podium this year. I just got back from nationals and I got on that podium. So about 3 or 4 years of work just got realized with a medal. But in January and April at tournaments, I was feeling some weaknesses in my Achilles tendon on my left side, which is my back leg, that is the support leg, and my back left hamstring. And I came back realizing they were so tight and going to have some problems with them. So I talked with my coach, and this is the advice I'm going to give. If you notice that you have something that's twinging you, treat it like it could become a strength. So like the muscles. Now, there's a caveat here. When we actually have a true weakness in our personal strength quiver of arrows, they'll never turn into a strength. A weakness like that is a skill that we can shore it up, we can mitigate against it, we can make it better and manage against it, but it will never be that beautiful, perfect arrow like a strength will be or a superpower. What I'm talking about is notice if you're feeling some twinges, some strains, some areas that aren't smooth and elegant and with full of ease. Train those like you would if you want to make them a strength. So I came back from the April national tournament, getting ready for this July championship, and I went to a PT, and I was doing my PT twice a day, every day except Sunday. I was doing my PT. I came back healthier and stronger than I ever have from a national event, and I pushed myself beyond what I've ever done before to get that medal. And so I have learned that if you'll notice the twinges, the strains, the tweaks, and pay attention to them, train yourself to work on them and make those stronger before you need them to be strong, you'll gain some capacity that might help inspire you to actually use some of your greatest potential, because you are building something underneath yourself that no longer has to twinge or ping you or nag at you. So there's a challenge to your audience. If there's something kind of nagging at you, you're like, yeah, maybe my kidneys don't feel so good. Maybe I need to go get that blood work and find out what it is. You find out there's not something not optimal, you work on that. Maybe there's something in your business acumen where you go, I'm a little unable to answer these kind of questions or to do this kind of thing on Excel. Okay, see if you can shore that up to an area where you can make that stronger in your competence. If you find some little area and you make it stronger, you'll start to feel more of your potential. You'll enliven a part of you that might inspire you to do bigger things later. But the mindset is, if it's starting to offend you at all, address it now. Don't wait.
It's like turning our weaknesses into strength has a power, not only because we become stronger, looking at the areas that we were once weak, but our limits that we had created for ourselves are now, insignificant. So it's just like, oh, I can't do this. My back hurts, or I'm too old to do something. We create those limits. But when we show ourselves, hey, there's really no limits, we can outgrow what our mindset is telling us or our subconscious is telling us, and we can choose what we want to do. And I think that's a powerful way to think.
It is. And that's exactly what I've used this last year. I went from unrated fencer to 5th in the nation in my age group.
Mm.
And I did that in less than a year. And that was coming off of a double tear rotator cuff surgery. So I'm here to say yes. And let's go back to this idea. There are genuine weaknesses in our skill set that will never become strengths. So work those up to a place where they're managed. And if they can't, they won't probably get to a superpower, but work on them until they're managed and find your superpowers and leverage those. It's in tandem. Manage the weaknesses, mitigate against their risk, and identify your superpowers and use those as the levers that catapult you forward.
And I love where this conversation had went, where we just talked about what you do, and then we got into the story of your life and then your accomplishments. We even did a little mini coaching session in
Yeah, we did.
between. But all of it is just based on a person's potential, the ability for their growth. And sometimes we are our own worst enemy. We build the obstacles in our mind, and we have to learn how to knock them down. And I believe that the work that you do is the foundation for helping people build an empire in their lives. And that is what we need more of in the world. People who are unafraid to show the world exactly who they are and what they can become. Because we do have so many possibilities, and we do have to grab those possibilities, and we have to make them our own. And as we begin to wrap up, I would love to get any final words. Please tell the audience where they can find us, and please plug your book. Tell your people about your book. They need to buy it.
All right. All right. So let's wrap up. So one of the things I want to segue off is what you just said. Your audience is full of more potential than they imagine. And I want you to, we're going to encourage them together to find that. And you can get my book at any bookstore, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any online bookstore. And so it's SoulSalt, a field guide that helps you with your courage, your purpose, your fulfillment. But here's the thought I would leave with your audience. And I just wrote it down this morning in preparation. Sometimes the most courageous choices we have to make are the ones that defy reason and logic. And finding that courage to listen to your own inner plumb line, that's what my TED Talk is about, of what your head, your heart, and your gut brain tell you. Sometimes that's the most courageous thing you can do, but I will promise it always leads you to your truth and not other people's expectations. Ways that people can follow me. One of the greatest things you can do is go out to soulsalt.com, SOULSALT.com. Sign up for our newsletter so you don't miss anything that's happening. We have a lot of free guides and things in our blog. So you can go to the blog and you could go down all kinds of explorations with that. I post personally right now. I don't know that will always be the case, but I personally post on Instagram under my name, Lyn Christian, 1N, and also SoulSalt Inc. We're on LinkedIn and we're also on Facebook. So those are ways for people to find us. If you have questions, you can direct message me. You can also go to info@soulsalt.com and ask questions after you've gone through this podcast. But I'm here to answer questions. And sometimes the question you ask blesses my life as much as it blesses yours. So don't be afraid to ask.
Mm-hmm. And I'll definitely toss all of those links and descriptions in the box below, so everyone can easily check out your website, social medias, your book, all of that. And that's going to allow them to step into abundance a lot sooner, I believe, because we live in a world where people have so many limits within their mind, and they're looking for the solution. They're looking for the person that is going to unlock the door that they think is locked right in front of them. And I think you have exactly what they need, Lyn. So I want you to keep doing the amazing work that you do. And I want to thank you also for coming on, sharing a little bit of your knowledge and wisdom with us today. Again, great conversation. All right, everyone, I'd like to thank you so much for watching that episode with Lyn Christian and myself. As you can see, that was a banger. That episode was so good. And as we were doing the interview, I was like, this is so good. This is so good. This is gold. And that is what we want to bring you, right? We want you to have the best type of experience when you come here in coaching a session. Yes, sometimes episodes might not be your cup of tea. And I am well aware of that, because sometimes coaches are going to have different personalities that are going to be different than yours, mine included. However, if you know anything about coaching a session, we are a politically correct podcast, and I typically just don't insert my opinion into the interview episodes. If I did want to insert my opinion, it would be before and after. Of course, you know that, but it's also in a Wednesday episode, and I would come and I would do a reflective episode on what just happened. But what I can tell you that happened in this episode is that we had two coaches come together and build something, because we can both see the power in people, the power in community, the power in potential. So we do know that everyone is going to need a coach. I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, why do I need a coach? And it's just easier. It's almost like you can get a team to build a house, or you can get a team to do your marketing, but you can do it yourself, right? So how much can you do? There's only 24 hours in a day. And we do have to understand that we grow with people. So whether you're growing or whether you are stagnant is going to be reflective on your choices today. One of the things that I want you to walk away with, because I know we talked about so many things in the episode, is to ask yourself a simple question. Are you stuck in some area of your life? And if the answer is yes, then that means you have to figure out a way to get unstuck. As Lyn was talking about, we have to look at our weaknesses, and then we have to make them manageable. All right. From there, we can figure out, okay, we don't just have flagrant weaknesses anymore, where it's going to be a detriment to who we are and who we can become. We are just saying, okay, we have developed a skill enough, and we still are going to focus on our superpower. My superpower is coaching, teaching, educating. I find a joy and love in that. There's a lot of things in this business, especially in my business. You have sales, you marketing, you have social media, and it's just a lot if you have to do it all yourself. And I don't do it all myself because I know I cannot do it all myself. And even in the editing for the episodes, I typically don't do all the editing myself. I would typically do the blog episodes, Wednesday episodes, group episodes, because I'm looking for a certain style. And I even do some group episodes if I believe my editor can't really bring out what I'm looking for. I'm all about results. She hit the nail on the head when she said, all right, I like to control my environment and I have a need for my space and stuff like that. That's a yes, right? I like controlling things to a certain extent. I understand there's going to be things I can't control. For example, I have a 1-year-old. He's over there yelling and screaming and probably breaking stuff. But guess what? That's life. He's learning. I am very aware of how a child grows up and develops, and I'm not going to be that roadblock in his life. I'm going to be there. I'm going to support that, and then I'm going to guide him accordingly. That is parenting. It's not so much of stopping your kid from doing the dangerous things and giving them an iPad whenever you're busy or you don't want to be bothered. When I'm available, and he has my full attention. Because at the end of the day, he's not going to remember me for the houses, the cars, and all of those things. He's going to remember the little things. And even though raising a child can come with many challenges and difficulties, we do have to remain resilient, because this is going to be the moment that we can relish in. And we didn't talk about like raising kids and stuff like that, but we talked about controlling the environment. And in parenting, you can't control every single environment, but you can control the results that you're looking for, right? The expectations. So we talk about that, and we talk about the challenge that's going to be there along the way. It is going to be something that's going to be unique for every individual. Your journey is going to be different than mine, right? There is nothing wrong with you having a different journey. There is nothing wrong with you having a different result if you do the exact same things that I have done, because you are going to learn that you're growing and that you're making progress. And that progress can lead you to so much more. So I want you to go check out all of Lyn's stuff, her social medias, and then begin to dive into the work that she does. Because having that demeanor, having that mindset of growth and possibilities is going to lead to something great and magnificent in your life. Read the book that she's creating, a year of coaching, basically, in one book. And that is a powerful thing. What I do in coaching a session, I mean, we've been on air since 2020. When you're listening to these episodes, it's always a nugget. It's a nugget of coaching in session. Currently, we're on episode, 336. That right there is just a testament of how much coaching we're bringing into the world. 3 episodes every single week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we're bringing coaching to you for your drive to work or your drive home. And I know people who listen to the episodes and they are looking for more episodes. And I mean, thank you so much. I'm tapped out on 3 episodes a week. I do have more shows coming out, and those are going to be like a 1 to 2 days a week type of thing. I understand that coaching in session can be done in 3 episodes. Mindset OD can be done in 1 episode. And my new show coming out in January can be done in maybe 2 episodes. So we're going to be playing with that as we grow the business, as we grow the brand. I want you also to be a part of this journey and grow your mind, grow your life, grow into the person that you're supposed to be becoming. And you don't have to do it by yourself. You can get a coach like Lyn. You can begin the process to look at the possibilities that are in your life. And when you start to see the possibilities, the only thing you have to do is have the right action. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, you can email me coachinginsession@gmail.com. And I'll see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone take care.